just on that surplus, let's call it out. Let's call those two surpluses as BS, because they are accidental surpluses. If you watch this program, I have been saying for about a year and a half, these are good luck, not good management. They're from the commodity sales of all the resources and the minerals that Labor wants Australia not to use, wants Australia to ban, that's keeping the budget afloat. And that was also confirmed in the Deloitte analysis.
And on top of that, also the massive amount of migration that has come in that, remember, the government has said it now wants to unwind. So when you look forward, you don't have those commodity prices. Remember that Labor, big parts of Labor and the Greens want to ban sales of gas, want to ban sales of coal into the future. And so therefore you go, well, all right, what do you got left? Well, iron ore. Well, hang on, you need coal with that iron ore to make steel. So where do you go then? So you go, well, all right, maybe something else to work for us. Well, the reality is education. Maybe you could educate. Well, you're now starting to cut student numbers into Australia. So wherever you look, there's actually a dead end somewhere. And Australia has got to cut through this and start to realise what it is. It's a commodity producer. We are not necessarily going to be, as the Prime Minister says, the sudden superpower for renewable energy. We might be to a certain extent, but that's not going to be the only thing that we need. We're going to need to export gas. We're going to need to export other commodities to make certain that this country remains strong, because that's what it is good at. And so really, even though our population will ultimately grow in time, the fact is now households are feeling the pressure. And so the government might well say, look, we've not been in recession. We've got all these things going in our favour, such as these surpluses. But the ordinary person in the street says, no, hang on, I know this is tougher. I know I'm not getting the interest rate cuts that I thought I was going to get. I know my grocery prices have gone up. I know that my taxes are higher. And that's where you're going to get the disgruntlement, because there is a disconnect between what the government is telling the community and what the community is feeling itself.
Yeah, but just on the point about, the Prime Minister's boast, we're going to be this renewable energy superpower. A superpower denotes that you make some sort of income from your renewables, right? That's what a superpower does with its asset base. Well, with renewables, the wind turbines and the solar panels, 90-odd% of them are coming from overseas. So the overseas jobs and overseas incomes earned, it's not earned in Australia. A lot of these wind farms and solar farms are foreign owned, pension funds out of Scandinavia and elsewhere. Spain, they're going to earn the money from the subsidies here and the use of these assets in Australia. So I don't know where we might be a big renewables user, but we don't become a superpower. Yet you look over at the United States today, they're going pretty hard on tariffs. They're making it absolutely clear, this is the new President, Donald Trump, he's making it absolutely clear he wants jobs and industries in the United States. He's pulled the trigger on those tariffs, and he's not scared of picking a fight with Beijing. And here we are, basically hiding under the bed every time China looks at us the wrong way.
Yeah, so totally true. So you go to say, for example, even to the problem for Australia right now with what's happening in America. So say if you're BlueScope Steel and you've got steel plants here, you've got them in China, you've got them in the United States. Where are you putting your money all at the moment? If you're Mark Vassella, the Chief Executive, you're going all in on the United States. And why? Because you can make steel there, which is basically protected from Chinese imports. You can make steel there with energy prices that are between a third and a half the price of Australia. You are more competitive, and the return on the money you invest there is greater. It's the same if you're Cochlear, if you are, say, ResMed, if you are Reece, the plumbing supplies company. And no surprise here that all those companies, after Donald Trump's announcement today of those new tariffs, all rose significantly on the stock market today. Why? They've got operations in America. They're going to put more of their money there and put less of their money here in Australia. Because why? Australia is not competitive. And people are going to understand this. And if you don't get the government settings right, if you don't get a government that says we're going to raise taxes, and you've got another government in America that says we're going to cut taxes, where do you think the money is going to flow to? If you've got energy prices there that is certain and it's also cheaper, where are people in industry going to invest? They're not going to invest in Australia, they're going to invest there. And the sooner that this gets through people's minds, because eventually it'll catch up with employment, catch up with opportunity. We can't all become care workers under the NDIS supported by the government. We've actually got to have some industries that do some things in this country. And the sooner that people realise and work this out, and the sooner that governments work this out, the better the country will be, because we'll get some genuine change and reform in this country.
And look, that's where I was hoping the change of government in the United States and this really pro-business agenda, pro-US agenda might force a rethink on both sides of politics here, because I think the Liberals have got to shake their system up as well and have on the table at the next election some serious reforms. Hey, just before we go, weigh into this one with me. So Andrew Clennell says that they'll call the election in April for May. They'll have a March budget. I'm not so sure. They've got to have these 2035 targets out in February unless they're in caretaker mode. Those energy targets will be horrific. Australians will not want them, and that's what's coming down the pipeline. And they've got this red ink that Deloitte confirms in a March budget. Why would you do the budget, Ross? Why wouldn't you just go to election and not tell people how bad it is?
Well, he's got to do a mid-year economic and fiscal update, which is coming out December. They could push that out until January. That's going to give us a part of the story. So let's be fair about that side of it. But the second side of it is there's one other aspect of this. I noticed that Andrew Clennell said push it out as late as you can. The budget is forecast not for May as it normally would be, but March 25. If it were me, however, I'd be sitting here looking at things right now. There are going to be no interest rate cuts between now and March 25. So that's not something that you're going to be able to hang your hat on. The situation for Australian families is going to get worse. It's not going to get better. In fact, unemployment might start to rise between now and then, putting even more pressure on families. Home prices are starting to dip in major markets right now. Conditions for families is deteriorating. They're not improving. And so from that point of view, there is nothing the government can do to make things feel better. Anything will feel like a Band-Aid. If it's a handout from a budget or a handout from a mid-year sort of thing or an election promise, it just feels like a Band-Aid, and people will see through that. And so the reality is, I'm with you actually. I think if you were politically astute, you'd smell the breeze right now and say sooner is probably better than later. But either which way, it's a tough fight.
I tell you, after a hot summer, which is predicted, and you get your power bill, people are not going to be happy.
Oh, yeah.
Ross, I'll leave it there.